till June of 2026. That is a 3-year deal at 42.5 million pounds sterling, which works out to an average in terms of runs of just above 300 million runs per year for 3 years. That equates to around 30% of the total budget of South African tourism. And the source of that would be the aggregation of small projects that have got less impact, taking the money from those and putting them on a platform that is able to be measurable, trackable, and give us a trackable, return. As I said, that over the years, the money has been spent anyway, but it has been spent on small projects that have resulted in us not having the visibility that we require. And what we are proposing to do is to aggregate those small projects and create something that has actually got trackable impact in the global environment. So in year one, what we would get is we would be on the training kit of both the men and the women's teams, that we would then be able to get onto the merchandise as well. We would have stadium branding, and the stadium branding that is in the Premiership League stadium, which forms part of the broadcast package, is a lot more advanced than the stadium branding that we see in our domestic stadiums. From a visual standpoint, the screens are a lot bigger. The messaging and content is a lot more dynamic. It's motion picture, not just graphics. You are able to play video on those screens, and we are able to get across our message in a way which will impact and induce people not only to be aware but to desire to travel to our destination. If we move on to year two will then get onto the first team sleeve and also the training kit. And by the way, all of these kits are sold in retail. So you literally would then have our branding on people walking around, wearing the jerseys in public. That is not even part of the measurement that has been put into this deal. The impact of the merchandise. Now you'll have a young American kid, a young British kid, a young German kid, a young Indian kid, a young, French kid walking around with South Africa on their sleeve. The psychological impact of that is that all of a sudden South Africa is a lot more accessible from a psychological standpoint, and we're able to grow a future generation of travelers that have got a greater affinity to the destination than they would have if they did not have the association with South Africa as a destination. As mentioned earlier, the people who will be traveling in 2030 and in 2035 are currently 18 and 20 years old now. So as part of our marketing effort, we can't only market to people that are traveling now. We've got to create a tier of recruitment for future travel as well. One of the things about Tottenham Hotspur as a team that we found attractive, and we'll discuss it a little bit later, is they have a target to be carbon neutral, zero carbon by 2040. They've got a very strong sustainability, program in terms of the stadium. The current kit is all recycled plastic, and as a destination, from a South African standpoint, we've got conservation and sustainability as part of the proposition that we want to sell to the world. So in terms of us being able to have a matching of values and a matching of marketing platforms, sustainability is at the heart of what we sell, conservation is at the heart of what we sell, and over this particular deal, we'll be able to drive that particular messaging. It's also the backdrop in terms of when there is press conferences, our branding would be, on there, and the impact of that from a pre-match and a post-match standpoint, again, that would be exponential in terms of its reach. There's also match day advertising, where we'd be able to actually place specific 30-second ads on the LEDs around the stadium, which would then go over the global broadcast as well, and promotions at the various activations that are around the stadium environment and also away from the stadium in terms of the fan parks that are supported. From a digital rights standpoint, we have access to their social media platform, and as we said, their reach is 80 million, so we'd be able to put messaging on the social media platforms on those particular match days. There's also goal graphic content, so every time the team scores, us being able to then be part of the graphic package that gets broadcast in those victory moments. And victory is a psychological state. Winning is a psychological state. And us being able to be tied into that winning psychological state gives people a positive disposition towards the destination in general. Then there's a partnership announcement itself, that the announcement value of the partnership, should it go ahead, in of itself is a global, has global reach. And we already know that, because once the potential deal was leaked, it is so big in the British media, even today. It is a huge newsworthy, platform, and we already know that it would be able to drive, that newsworthiness, and for us to be able to articulate our proposition in that time. From a player and an ambassador, access standpoint, we'd be able to access the team members as well, as ambassadors for travel to South Africa. Content amplification, again, both current and legend players, to be able to generate content for the destination on social. Again, we talked about targeted digital campaigns, paid social media, and also us being able to drive CRM, direct marketing into the base. All of that is part of the deal. We then said, from a club standpoint, the club in the off-season, and that's the one thing that we had not articulated, because that was under the NDA that we had signed as part of the negotiation. But we've all agreed it's now in the public domain, so we can share everything. The club in the off-season, it is proposed, as part of the proposal, will come to South Africa in the off-season and play against 2 local teams. So that will drive travel from the African continent and drive our own domestic tourism. There's also the setting up of an academy in South Africa to help our sports, arts and culture divisions to be able to actually build the soccer talent of this nation. As an aside, if you look at all of the qualifying teams into the World Cup, if you don't have a minimum of half of your team playing either in the English League or La Liga or Bundesliga, you're not going to qualify for the World Cup, because the team itself does not have that global high-level performance, fitness level and mental level. So if you look at the teams that we had that qualified, we had that cohort of team members that played in those leagues. So this is now the football component, that once the camp is set in South Africa, it would help in terms of talent development within the country and inspire young people to be able to think globally and develop themselves. That's the training camp that is on page 38, and the stadium hospitality as well at the Tottenham Stadium for us to do stakeholder management, and even for our private sector from a South African standpoint to be able to do sales hostings in those environments. And that is not only at soccer matches, it's at any event that is hosted there. We've also negotiated to have a South African event at the stadium to be able to access the British audience from that standpoint. Slide 39, takes us through the financial implications, and I've already gone through that. It is 42.5 million rands over 3 years, and that is where the deal structure stands. In terms of measurability, as we said, our policies says 1-to-1 ratio, and we've been able to demonstrate that this would give us a 1-to-88 ratio at a 18% CAGR, and a 1-to-58% ratio at a 13% CAGR. I'm going to jump over all of these slides and go on to the first map there that shows us the 616 million followers and where they are located. They're located in the UK and Europe. They're located in the US, the northern part of South America, on the African continent, across Asia and Australasia. So although the deal is domiciled in the UK, its reach is in fact global in terms of the audiences. And the numbers are there on the right-hand side. In terms of the follower base of 145 million followers in all key markets, again, the numbers show where those followers can be found. And that is what persuaded us that we would be able to have the right level of reach across all of our key source markets. On page 44, it talks about that whole sustainability proposition that I spoke about, and this is a very inspired journey that this team is going on in terms of being a sustainable soccer team. And we looked at this and said, as a South African tourist destination, we should also have a roadmap like this. We've got, from a South African Tourism and Sandparks, we've got an MOU to develop our sustainability and conservation proposition. And this would be the kind of journey that we'd then be able to build in order to build our sustainability proposition and project it to the rest of the world. The expected results, there is a clear roadmap there. I'm not going to go into the detail, but we would be able to go on a journey of really recreating and re-inspiring our tourism destination over the next 3 years and going forward. Now, from a go or no-go standpoint on page 46, should we decide to go ahead with this deal, I think we've been able to, with obviously further clarity, we'd be able to demonstrate the value that this project would be able to bring over 3 years. Should we make a decision not to go with it, we would revert to doing small things, I guess, as an organization, because that is where we have been. And I think that we would not reach the target that we have been set by, the president. I think we would engender a mindset of minimalism and of fear in our colleagues. And I think we would not be able to inspire ourselves to do great, bold things that are able to drive our economy. That is just our assertion, but we do know that other people might have a different view. I now would like to come to the last part, which is the timeline of what has happened over the last couple of weeks, and then begin to address some of the questions that are in the public domain. On slide 47, this is the timeline that I obtained pertaining to this project. As you can see, strategically, we've been thinking about and looking for big opportunities. We do get proposals that come from various places, some that are exciting, some that are not so exciting. We also have our own ideas that we generate internally, and we go through, and also in terms of collaboration with our stakeholders, we come up with a set of ideas that then go into our annual performance plan. In December, at the top of page 47, we discussed this Tottenham proposal with the board, and it was resolved that in January 2023, we would then travel and go and see whether this particular project is viable or not. Point number two, there on the 9th of January, the board was approved for travel, and the travel did occur between the 12th and the 16th of January. And the way in which the team that traveled was composed is it was the chairperson of the board and the deputy chairperson as the leadership of the board, and also the chairpersons of each of the committees of the board, the 4 committees of the board: the marketing and commercial committee of the board, the audit and risk committee of the board, the human capital and remuneration committee of the board, and the awards committee of the board that looks at the grading and the supply side. 2 of the 4 committee chairpersons were unable to travel due to prior commitments and also some travel logistical issues. So the chairperson of the marketing and commercial committee of the board, the chairperson of the human capital and remuneration committee of the board, the chairperson of the committee of the board, and the deputy chairperson of the board did travel, together with the executive team led by myself. We went and we had a look at that program between the 12th and the 16th. On the 19th of January, the project was tabled at the marketing and commercial committee of the board, which resolved to recommend the project for approval on the 27th of January. On the 27th of January, the program was tabled at the board, and I must emphasize the project was not approved on that day. Further work was recommended by the board at that time, and it was remitted back to the marketing committee of the board in consultation with the audit and risk committee of the board. I'm saying this so that there's clarity on this particular matter, that the document that was leaked to the public is not the document that the board approved. Therefore, all of the commentary that is happening in the public domain is based on a document that was not the approved document. That is why when I am asked direct questions about the document that was leaked, I choose not to answer those questions because I cannot vouch for its authenticity. I don't know whether the person that leaked it could have changed certain things before leaking it. I don't know. So therefore, we cannot necessarily comment on the authenticity of that particular document. I can also point out that on the 31st of January, when the board eventually reconvened, there was a marketing committee meeting at 12:30 on the 31st, Tuesday the 31st, which then resolved to recommend the project for approval to the board.